California, as a public service by Richfield, makers of Rich Lube HD motor oil and Richfield rust-proof gasoline. For every industrial purpose, there's a Richfield lubricant. It has been said that in the settlement of America, the tools required in order of their importance were the rifle, axe, and plow. Indeed, many a young lad learned how to shoot before he learned how to spell. But the rifle of yesterday, even in the hands of such marksmen and American heroes as Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett, and Sergeant York, was a crude, inefficient weapon when compared with today's handsomely tooled rifles of infinitely greater power. To examine in detail the manufacture of the modern rifle, our success story cameras are located in Southgate, where the custom-made Weatherby Magnum rifle is produced. Here in a modern machine shop, where production speed is sacrificed for precision and hand craftsmanship, is made a rifle known the world over for accuracy and power. Another part of this organization, widely known to sportsmen, is this huge, brightly lit sales room, which carries in stock practically every sporting device marketed today. Lining the walls are big game trophies from every corner of the world, which testify to the accuracy of the Weatherby rifle. And now to learn more of this organization, which began in a garage 8 short years ago and has succeeded in making a product so uniformly excellent it is now sold throughout the world, our success story reporter Ken Peters talks with Roy E. Weatherby.
Well, Mr. Weatherby, from what started out as just a hobby, you certainly have built yourself quite a success story.
Well, thank you, but it wouldn't have been possible if I hadn't have had all the good help I have.
Well, of course, I know that's true, but I think everybody will agree that it's pretty much Roy Weatherby's personal success story. After all, 8 years ago, you were an insurance salesman, and now you're running a gun manufacturing business that's known throughout the world. Now, Mr. Weatherby, we'd like to know just how all this happened.
Well, I'll tell you, Ken, you know, everybody has a hobby, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a hobby, too. Mine happened to be guns and ballistics, and I studied guns and ballistics as much as I could, and about 8 years ago, I wrote an article for one of the outdoor magazines about high-velocity rifles that I had been building, and, you know, I got 500 letters in 1 month, and I had never received that many letters in all my life. And so I thought, well, if there's that many people interested, why, maybe I was in the wrong business. So I started in my garage in Huntington Park, and I don't know, I guess the people just like my product, so today I'm in business.
Well, now, Roy, there must have been something pretty revolutionary about your idea. What is the basic difference in a Weatherby rifle?
Well, the basic difference is the velocity of the bullet. You see, the bullet travels much faster because we have a larger cartridge case, which has more powder and makes the projectile go faster, which means a lot more killing power and a lot easier to hit your animal because the trajectory is so much flatter, and then it has so much more velocity when it actually gets there. See?
Yeah. Well, now, I know beside this efficiency angle, you also concentrate on making each gun a thing of real beauty. Well, Roy, that gives us a good idea now, and with this in mind, I think we can commence our success story of Weatherby rifles.
The three major components of the modern rifle are the action mechanism, the stock, and the barrel. And since no rifle can be expected to shoot better than its barrel, let us commence there and view some of the intricate and precise operations required in its manufacture. It begins as a solid round bar of chrome molybdenum steel. Here, John Howley is cutting 27-inch lengths for the .257 caliber rifle.
Now, our first operation begins with this monomatic lathe here, which is one of 9 that there are in existence in the country today. Now, this is a rough turning operation in which the excess stock of the barrel is cut away and it's given its first rough shaping. Now, this is the cutting tool right in here, and of course the big problem is to keep the barrel from bowing away from the cutting tool as it goes down the length of the barrel. And this is achieved by the use of these rollers here, which clamp down over the barrel and encircle it and hold it steady. And these rollers will follow right down with the cutting tool down the entire length of the barrel. This is called a following rest and is unique to this particular monomatic lathe. Now, of course, the barrel varies a great deal in size and shape from one end to the other, and the depth of the cutting is determined by this template here, or this pattern. As you'll be able to see on this pattern, it is cut to conform perfectly to the contours of the finished rifle barrel. This is Basil Dell here, who's operating this machine. Basil, I hope I haven't interrupted your work here. Once this rough turning is completed, we're ready then for the drilling operation. This is a very precise operation which takes place in this deep hole drilling machine here. And incidentally, Weatherby is known in the industry as specialist in this particular field. Now we're going to see here Everett Clark will insert the drill into the barrel here. This drill looks like just a simple steel rod, but it does its job very effectively. As Bill Green, the shop foreman, refers to it as a lazy drill because unlike most drills, this drill doesn't even bother revolving. It just stands still and allows itself to be fed into the barrel end, and it lets the barrel itself do the actual revolving. Now, it is revolving at 2,000 RPM, and Bill tells me that although it is revolving, the exact center of this remains stationary. And the drill, being lazy, seeks the line of least resistance, and so it always manages to find the exact dead center of the barrel. The drill, incidentally, is hollow, and oil is shot into the end of the drill at a pressure of 850 pounds per square inch. Now, to give you an idea of just what takes place here, we have a cutaway model. I'm going to ask Everett to feed in. This is the end of the drill here. Now, remember, it doesn't revolve. It will be just fed into this mechanism, and then we'll be able to see as it arrives here into the cutaway of the barrel. This, of course, won't revolve in order that we can demonstrate. There comes the drill on through there. Now, the drill has a little hole right at the end here, and the oil shoots out through there, and then it is returned through this fluting right here. And, of course, this tremendous oil pressure manages to wash away all of the chips and to keep the tool clean. So once we have our hole drilled here, we're ready for the reaming operation. This second machine here is another one just like the one we've seen, only it's capable of drilling a barrel 50 inches long. Now, the hole we've seen drilled is 0.08 of an inch small, and this reaming operation will bring it up to the proper size. It will be sent through this reaming process 3 different times. Now, this drill isn't quite as lazy as the one we've just seen. It will do the revolving. Here we see Mr. McElvin inserts the entire rod through the hole in the barrel up to the end. The last 3 inches of this rod is the actual reaming device. Then it revolves, and the barrel is simply pulled down over the reamer. Of course, here again we have oil flowing through the hollow drill at a very high pressure. And down here, we'll be able to see how the oil flows out, carrying away all of the chips and keeping the reaming end of the tool clean. Well, so much for the reaming operation. Now there's one more very important operation in rifle making, and I'm going to ask Bob Green if he'll explain to me just what takes place here. Bob, I wonder if I can interrupt you long enough here to get some information about this. This is the rifling operation, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Bob, what is rifling?
Well, rifling, Ken, is the little micro grooves that are cut inside the barrel on a spiral.
Well, what's the purpose of rifling?
The purpose of rifling is to spin the bullet as it leaves the barrel to stabilize it in its flight.
Mm-hmm. Now, Bob, I wonder if you can show us just what happens here on the rifling
Certainly.
machine.
When you see this little head come out of here, as it will in just a second, it's a rifling head that fits the bore of the barrel. Now, there's a little cutter in that head, and as your rifling head is pulled back through the barrel on the spiral, it cuts the groove, and it repeats that cycle until it's cut the barrel to the depth.
Well, how is the exact angle of that controlled?
It's controlled with a sine bar on the back of the machine here. And by setting that sine bar, you can get any particular twist in a barrel that you want.
Bob, how long does the rifling operation take?
Well, on this particular machine, Ken, it takes about 45 minutes. However, we have over here a Lapani brooch designed especially for our needs. And with this particular machine, we can do the same operation in about 3 minutes.
This does the rifling job, but it does it in 3 minutes instead of 45.
That's correct. That's correct. Now, the principle of this machine is this is a broach. This is a broaching tool. Now, this broach is pulled through the barrel like this as the barrel is revolved around the broach. And it only takes 4 pulls through there, and we have a rifle barrel cut in 3 minutes. Now, we might be able to pick up a little action on the broach here. We're pulling the broach through the barrel now. You can see the lead screw turning, which in turn is turning the barrel around the broach as it's being pulled through there.
All right, thank you very much, Bob. And now our barrel is ready to return to the monomatic lathe for the final finishing.
After the barrels are turned and ground to a mirror-like finish, they're returned to this machine for thread cutting. It is here that the receiver action will be joined to the barrel with such force that 2 units will become practically one. The next step is the important one of chambering. The chamber is that portion of the barrel in which the cartridge rests until ejected after firing. Herein also lies an important Weatherby contribution to the science of ballistics. That is the fact that a rifle using a lighter projectile with greater muzzle velocity is more efficient than one which fires a larger bullet. This is accomplished by boring a larger chamber, which in turn allows the use of larger cartridge cases, hence the name Weatherby Magnum. It is also accomplished by a 3/4-inch throat, which allows a more gradual buildup of gas pressure behind the bullet. This combination has produced standard muzzle velocities in excess of 4,100 feet per second. Of utmost importance is the absolute smoothness of the bore. This is being achieved here by Michael McIntyre, a gunsmith of 27 years' experience, who uses a combination of finely powdered carborundum and much elbow grease. But since the rifling throughout the barrel is a series of raised and depressed surfaces, the problem is to find a plug that will fit these twisting contours. This is done by the ingenious method of using the barrel itself as a simple mold. First, a lapping rod is inserted. Molten lead is then poured into the barrel and around the rod. After cooling, the rod with lead plug attached is withdrawn. The lead plug, perfectly matched to the contours of the barrel, is brushed with carborundum compound, reinserted into the barrel, and drawn back and forth until the surface is glass-like in appearance.
Well, as you can see, the making of the barrel of a Weatherby rifle is a very slow and painstaking task. And of course, all the time that it was going on, other skilled workmen like gunsmith Bill Morton here have been at work at other phases. Now, Bill here is assembling the action mechanism to the barrel of the gun. As we see here, the receiver has already been screwed into its proper position onto the barrel, and Bill over here now is assembling the bolt mechanism. This is a bolt action gun. There are 10 different parts here involved in this bolt mechanism. He is assembling them and will then install it in its proper position on the gun. Incidentally, this particular gun that Bill is working on is being made especially for a prince of Iran, His Imperial Highness Abaretsi Pavlavi. I'm sure the prince will forgive us if that is a mispronunciation. Now here, Bill is installing the bolt stop and the ejector, and now the magazine and the trigger guard are being installed into their proper position. Once these screws are properly in place, he will then test the trigger action and the ejector action of the gun to make sure that it's functioning properly. There he tries the bolt action and trigger action. It's working fine. All right, and now with the barrel, the action mechanism completed, the first of several tests takes place.
The first test the rifle is subjected to is the proof test. Here only the operating mechanism, the barrel and receiver, without the stock, is locked into a special loading device. Since this test concerns only the bolt action and chamber, the bullet is of no consequence and is fired into a trap that quickly dissipates its energy. To test the mechanism, Weatherby Magnum cartridges are loaded with considerably more powder than normal. Upon explosion, this overload delivers approximately 100,000 pounds per square inch against the bolt face and chamber walls. This excessive pressure immediately makes apparent any defects in the cartridge case or flaws within the metal itself. When one considers the fact that 50,000 pounds per square inch are normal operating pressures, it becomes evident that while building America's finest rifle, Weatherby also builds the safest. You are viewing Success Story from the home of Weatherby Rifles. Success Story is brought to you by Richfield.
Well, of course, one of the outstanding features of Weatherby rifles is the beautiful variety of woods that are used in their manufacture, and we want you to see some of those woods in just a moment. But right now, we want you to see a very amazing machine. This is a wood carving machine that carves 18 gun stocks at one time. But before we look at the machine, to give you an idea of just exactly what it does accomplish, this is the way the gun stock looks when it is first inserted into the machine. As you can see, it's just a big chunk of wood. And now, let's get a look at this amazing machine that will carve out 18 gun stocks at one time. Now, you notice here that the operator is working on one gun which seems to be already finished. Well, this is Walter Beal, who is an expert at this particular machine, and this gun he is working on is a stock pattern. And now he just follows the contours of that stock pattern with the guide head, and the identical action is duplicated on all 18 of the cutting heads that are cutting the various stocks. Now, this is the first rough cut, and there are 6 separate cuts that are involved before this job is completed. Mr. Beal does this operation in a full 8-hour day. Now, this will give you an idea of the way that gun stock looks when Mr. Beal is through with it in the wood carving machine. Now, we promised to demonstrate some of the different type woods for you. This is myrtle wood from Oregon, which, of course, as you know, makes up into a very beautiful gun stock. And then, secondly here, we have mesquite from the California desert. This is bird's eye maple, makes up to a very beautiful stock. And then over here we have walnut and burl maple and rosewood from Mexico. All of these are chosen because of their particular grain structure and their color and strength.
After receiving their rough shapes at the carving machine, the stocks are turned over to a group of craftsmen whose skilled fingers and infinite patience turn the stocks into truly fine examples of wood carving art. Here, Don Richardson is doing what is known as checkering, a geometrically precise pattern. It's applied to those portions of the stock the hand would normally grip, providing a non-slip surface, so important for proper shooting, as well as an eye-catching decoration.
Now we'd like to let you see how an inlay is installed into the stock of a gun. Mr. Eddie Sowers is engaged in installing here a rather intricate inlay. It's ivory inlay within an ebony inlay. Now, he has already installed the ebony inlay. He has carved out the ebony and then a corresponding surface in the stock and has glued it in. And now he is gluing in the ivory insert. As you see, he has cut into the ebony here, and now he will glue the ivory insert in its place. Eddie tells me that he started doing this sort of work on guns when he was just a boy, and he stuck with it. And, of course, now he's an expert at this very precise job. As you can imagine, that the finished job has to be such that the seams will be all but invisible. Now, here's a gentleman down here I'd like to have you see in action. He's a man who started wood carving many years ago over in Holland and is now using his art in the beautifying of Weatherby rifles. Mr. Backer, I hate to disturb you at your work here, but how long have you been a wood carver?
I've been for over 45 years.
Over 45 years?
Over 45
And how long have you been working on gun stocks?
For the last 7 years.
That's since the start of Weatherby.
Since the start of Weatherby, yes.
Now, do you do all the decorative work on,
Yes.
on the gun? You did this inlay work here?
Yeah, I've done that by hand.
Boy.
That's all hand work.
That is certainly beautiful.
Yeah.
Looks like a part of the actual wood itself there.
Yeah, it is.
And then when you come to the wood carving, I understand you make your own designs. Is that right?
All my own designs.
Uh-huh. These are some of the designs that you draw up.
Yeah.
And you trace them onto the gun and then go ahead with your
Trace on the
carving.
wood and then go ahead with my carving.
Would you go ahead with your carving right now so we can see how it takes place? And of course, once the decorative work on the gun is done, the stock is given its finishing coat that requires 8 coats of plastic lacquer, and of course, completely dried in between the coats and sanded. All right, now we have the gun stock all completed, and we're ready for the final assembly. Well, you might call it the assembly of the lock, stock, and barrel, and that's what Bill Hensley is engaged in doing here. It's his job to see to it that the stock will conform perfectly to the barrel and to the action mechanism. So I understand that this is a job which sometimes takes just a few minutes and sometimes involves a half hour, 45 minutes of operation. But in the hands of an expert like Bill here, it is always done perfectly. Now with the barrel and the action mechanism completed, we're ready for the final test.
Despite the great care and exactitude exercised in the manufacture of a rifle, the ultimate test, of course, is its firing. Here is tested not only its accuracy, but the consistency with which it places a number of shots in a relatively small area. This naturally requires a firing range, and in the highly populated city of Southgate, the firing of high-powered rifles was an operation viewed with some skepticism by the citizens. Weatherby's solved this problem by going underground. A 100-yard tunnel, 3 feet in diameter, was constructed, and a little electric trolley installed to carry fresh targets down its length and return the punctured targets for analysis.
Well, Roy, since for most of our viewers this is the climax of the manufacture of rifles, I'm very glad to have you here to explain it. Now, as I understand it, each one of the rifles before it is given over to the customer undergoes an actual test firing.
That's right, Ken. We send one of those targets with every rifle that goes to a customer.
That's right. Now, the chronograph test is something that I think our viewers ought to know something about. Would you explain that, Roy?
Well, now, here, Ken, we have the chronograph screen. Now, this screen, we call it a screen, and actually it isn't a screen, but it is a light screen. Because when the bullet passes through that light, why, it cuts the circuit. And down here, we have another screen, just exactly like this one, 40 feet down here.
Let's walk down and take a look at that one, Roy.
The object being that we time the bullet from one of these screens to the other.
Oh, I see.
It passes here at the 40 feet, and it comes, of course, through the muffler here, and from the shooting room inside, where we do the shooting.
And in there you also have the chronograph.
That's right, that's where the chronograph is.
All right, let's step in so we can get an idea what the chronograph looks like, Roy. This is the actual firing room here, and this is the chronograph on which the results of the firing are recorded. Now, Roy, I think first I think Mr. Batchelder here is ready to do the firing. Let's focus on him as he makes one shot, and then the second shot, supposing we focus on the chronograph. Would that be all right?
That's fine.
All right. Mr. Batchelder, you can fire when ready. All right, now let's focus over here on the chronograph and watch the lights light up as the shot is fired. All right, Mr. Batchelder. Now, would you explain those lights to us?
Now, you see, Ken, you have 1 and 8, which is 9. Over here you have 1 and 2, which is 3 and 8. So that makes 0, 9, 3, 8. Now, that's that portion of a second that it took that bullet to travel that 40 feet. So you merely take your slide rule and check your velocity, and here you have 3,450 feet per second.
And that is high velocity,
Well,
isn't it?
I think so.
Well, now, Roy, we want to find out the results of this chart here, but while we're waiting for it to travel the length of the tunnel, we would like to view the ammunition loading department.
A special ammunition loading department is maintained by Weatherby's to supply sportsmen and sporting goods stores all over the world with the proper Weatherby Magnum ammunition for their precise requirements. And here we see Joe Birning loading smokeless powder into cartridge cases which have already received their primers. So important is the correct amount of powder that the apothecary system of weighing by grains is used. A yarn scale is needed to periodically check the weight of the powder discharged by the loading mechanism. Loading completed, the cases are carried to another tool that tightly presses into position the copper-jacketed bullet.
Well, now, Roy, if that's an example of what your Weatherby rifles can do, right on the bullseye there, well, I predict many very successful years for your organization. By the way, what can you tell us about the future plans for Weatherby Incorporated?
Well,
do you plan to expand into any new lines?
Well, of course, we always have to think about the future. And we are going to put scope sights on the market. Here's one of the samples that we're working on now, and we hope sometime this year we'll have that ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Incidentally, this is certainly a most unusual office you have here, and I think our viewers should know that you are personally responsible for all of the animals, not only here in the office, but that amazing display out in the sporting goods store. Now, there's one thing that we haven't covered about your rifles, and that is the chrome lined barrel, and I understand you're pretty proud of that.
Well, I tell you, we have one right over here, Ken.
Well, let's go over and take a look at it. I believe Roy has a cutaway model here, so we can get an idea just what that chrome lining is.
Well, you see, here's a chrome-lined barrel. Now, actually, that's a chrome-impregnated bore. It doesn't have a lining in it, but it's chrome-impregnated. And
What's the purpose of that chrome?
Well, it's to make the barrel last longer. It's to make it much smoother inside, to keep it from picking up metal foiling from the bullet, and also, of course, to keep it from rusting.
Well, Roy, from what we've seen tonight, we certainly know that every Weatherby rifle is a work of art, and I know that you do make a lot of rifles, especially for famous men of the world. But what about the average guy hunter? Have you taken him into consideration at all?
We haven't forgotten him, because he's an important customer. Now, we have our ordinary standard model that we build, and that's our deluxe model, we call it. It's the run-of-the-mill, but it does everything that the more expensive models do, but, of course, not quite as elaborate.
Mm-hmm. But mechanically, it functions in just the same way. Is that right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Shoots the same cartridges.
Mm-hmm. And it still is a very beautiful gun. Now, Roy, I can't resist asking you one final question after seeing this entire amazing organization you have here tonight. Do you ever think of going back into the insurance business?
You know, I've thought of that a lot of times. But, you know, I think I'll stay in this business. I like it. It's very intriguing.
Well, I'm sure you will, and I'm certain the name Roy Weatherby will continue to be a big and bigger name in the gun industry. Well, I want to thank you for what we've seen tonight. I know it has made a very interesting success story.
And it is indeed another chapter of that reoccurring American success story, which says that any man with a new idea or a better product, plus the ability to work hard, will succeed. Thus, in the space of 8 short years, has Weatherby's Incorporated risen from a one-man operation to the splendid organization we've witnessed tonight. Success Story and On the Spot Report is brought to you by the makers of Richfield Rust-Proof Gasoline, Rich Lube HD Motor Oil, and a complete line of years ahead petroleum products. For every machine, in every type of service, there's a scientific Richfield lubricant. Next week at this same time, we'll bring you another live origination of Success Story with Ken Peters. Your camera reporters were Dick White, Chuck LaForce, and Len Uslander. Floor managers John Choulet, Bernard Wiesen, and Lloyd Wright. Next week's Success Story views the creation of stained glass windows at Judson Studios. Be with us then. And now this is Bruce Anson speaking, wishing you a good night from Richfield.